everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're going to dive into something a little different, a little more interesting than it might sound at first. The psychology of money.
Well,
And don't worry, we're not talking about boring budgeting tips or anything like that.
Oh.
We're going deeper. We're going to explore the often kind of surprising ways our minds work when it comes to money.
absolutely.
And to help us unpack all of this, we are joined by a true expert in behavioral economics.
It's great to be here. And you're right, this isn't about spreadsheets or anything like that.
Oh,
We're really going to dig into why you might make totally different money choices than someone else, even if you've got like similar incomes or backgrounds, you know?
exactly. And our guidebook for this journey is Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money. I started reading this and I thought, okay, this is another, finance book.
Right.
But it totally surprised me.
Me too. It's so good.
Yeah, what did you think?
I think what I loved most about it is how Housel uses stories, real stories, to show that like our relationship with money, it's deeply personal.
Yeah.
It's almost like a fingerprint,
Okay.
you know?
I like that.
Imagine like your relationship with money as unique as your fingerprint.
Yeah.
And it's shaped by everything from like maybe your grandma's, depression era
Yeah.
frugality
Right.
to that time you like scored big on some risky investment.
Yeah. It all kind of gets internalized in a way. It's
Yeah.
not just about how much you have, but it's all the experiences that have led you to this point. And speaking of these kind of formative experiences, Housel, he kicks off the book with this great story about a tech millionaire who carries around like a brick of $100 bills.
Oh, I remember that.
Like, this guy's loaded. Right. But he still feels the need to flash the cash.
It's so interesting.
What's up with that?
Right. It's like, we get it, dude. You're rich. But Housel uses this story to show that no matter how successful, someone seems on the surface, their past experiences really do leave a mark on how they act with money.
Yeah.
Even if they don't realize it.
Right. Yeah.
Think about it. Those experiences like growing up during a recession or seeing your parents stress about bills constantly,
Yeah.
they create a lens.
Totally.
It's like a lens through which you view risk, reward, and even like those everyday money decisions.
It's like your money psychology almost.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's where this whole financial fingerprint idea comes in, right? It's this invisible force that can kind of explain why, you might be a super saver
Right.
while your friend throws money around like it's going out of style.
Totally. And here's why this matters. Understanding your financial fingerprint, it's crucial.
Okay.
It's like a superpower.
Okay.
You start recognizing your own biases.
Right.
You can finally empathize with those friends who, make those money moves that leave you scratching your head. Like,
Yes.
what are you doing?
Totally.
And plus, you realize that judging someone's financial success based on what you see on the surface, it's just like silly.
It's like that old saying, don't judge a book by its cover.
Exactly. We've all got our own story going on.
It's so true. You never know what's going on behind the scenes. But okay, so if everyone's money story is so unique, right?
Yeah.
How can we even talk about money as a society?
Right.
It feels like we're all speaking different financial languages.
Totally. That's such a great question. And Housel, he tackles it head on.
Okay.
He challenges this idea, this common idea that, especially within generations, we've all kind of experienced financial history in the same way.
No, really.
Like how people say, oh, millennials are screwed because of the economy,
yeah.
whatever it is.
Right, we all got the same memo about student loans and the housing market.
Exactly.
But Housel is saying, hold on, it's not that simple.
Yeah, it's way more nuanced than that.
Okay.
He uses hard data to show how even within a single generation,
Right.
there can be drastically different financial experiences. Just as a quick example, someone born in 1950, they experienced a completely different stock market than, say, someone born in 1970.
Oh, wow.
Same generation, vastly different financial realities.
Whoa. See, I never even thought about it like that.
Yeah.
So this whole shared experience thing, it's kind of a myth.
In a way, yeah.
It's like we're all walking around with different maps, thinking we're navigating the same terrain.
It is.
Yeah.
It's like we're speaking different languages sometimes.
Mm.
And this awareness, being aware of that, it's key. It helps you see those generational divides with, more empathy and understanding that what seems normal financially to you might be totally foreign to someone else.
Yeah.
Even within, your same age group.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all relative.
It's like opening your eyes to a whole new dimension of like the money conversation.
Exactly.
It makes you realize there's always more to learn. And judging someone else's choices, it's rarely productive.
Never is, really.
Right.
It's about understanding.
Yeah. And speaking of understanding, what about those people who just seem to defy all odds and become, like, ridiculously successful?
Oh, yeah, those people.
Like, is it all skill and hard work, or is there, like, a sprinkle of magic dust involved? Like, is there a secret formula because I want in? But seriously, we've all heard those rags to riches stories.
Totally.
Right.
Of course.
But Housel throws a real curveball when he says, hey, maybe we should consider how much of that is actually just luck.
100%. Luck is a huge factor.
Yeah. It's like he's pulling back the curtain on something we don't often talk about.
For sure. Yeah, it's like he's saying, hey, let's not forget about good old-fashioned luck.
Right.
He argues that focusing too much on those, like, outlier success stories,
Right.
like, the Bill Gateses and Warren Buffetts,
Yeah.
can give us a distorted view of how success actually happens.
It's like survivorship bias almost.
Totally.
We only see the people who made it.
Exactly. It's like comparing yourself to, like, the lottery winner.
Right.
And feeling bad because you didn't pick the right numbers. It's not a fair comparison.
Right. Totally.
And Housel uses this concept of doppelgangers,
Okay.
which is risk and luck, to kind of explain how intertwined those two things really are.
So it's not just about, like, working your tail off and hoping for the best.
Right.
It's also acknowledging that there is this element of chance.
Yeah.
That plays a role, and sometimes things are just, like, out of our control.
100%. And, like, acknowledging that doesn't mean that you shouldn't work hard or strive for success.
Right.
It's just about, like, managing expectations,
Yeah.
Being kinder to yourself during setbacks.
Yeah.
And just realizing that sometimes, the dice just roll a certain way.
Yeah. So we've got our unique financial fingerprint, this kind of, like, unpredictable element of luck. And then on top of that, the economic landscape is always shifting beneath our feet.
Always, yeah. It's like, how do we even make sense of it all?
Right. It's overwhelming.
It can be, yeah.
But Housel, he has this really fascinating take on this. He argues that, like, understanding the past, especially, like, the history of economic growth and consumer behavior, can actually shed light on these seemingly irrational choices that we make today.
Totally. It's like looking in the rearview mirror to figure out where we're going.
Right.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
So he takes us on this journey through, like, some key moments in American economic history. He starts with, like, the post-World War II boom where, America was just, like, in overdrive.
Oh, yeah.
Making and consuming like never before.
Yeah. That was like the golden age of consumerism, right?
It was.
Yeah.
But it also, like, set the stage for a lot of the, like, habits and expectations that we still carry with us today.
Right.
Like, that's when easy credit really exploded onto the scene, Credit cards, installment plans, you name it.
Oh, yeah. Buy now, pay later.
Exactly. It was like suddenly people could buy things that they, like, couldn't actually afford outright, which was a huge shift from, previous generations.
Totally. Debt went from this, like, taboo topic to, like, a normal part of life.
Exactly. And this whole new era of, like, credit-fueled consumerism, it really took hold.
Yeah.
But then you fast forward to the 70s and you've got rising inflation, you've got economic stagnation.
Right. Things got a little rocky.
Things got real rocky. But even though the economic reality had changed, those expectations from the boom years, they lingered.
Right. So it's like we're trying to navigate a new world using an old map.
100%.
No wonder it's confusing.
No wonder we're all a little messed up about money.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about something a little bit more technical for a second. Tail events.
Okay, yeah.
Housel talks about this a lot, and I'll admit, I had to, like, brush up on my statistics a bit.
It's been a while for me, too.
Can you explain it in a way that, like, even I can understand?
Okay, so think of a tail event like winning the lottery. Or on the flip side, like a massive stock market crash.
Okay, yeah.
They're statistically rare, these kind of extreme highs and lows.
Right.
But they happen more often than we think, especially when it comes to finance.
You're right. So it's like, always be prepared for the unexpected, because the unexpected can really throw things for a loop.
Yeah, and a lot of times, those tail events, like those big wins or big losses, they have this, like, outsized impact on the overall results. It's not just about, like, playing it safe and hoping for, average returns.
So then, like, how do we even make decisions when we know that these, like, unpredictable events can happen at any time? It feels like we have even less control than we thought.
Right. That's where Housel's concept of room for error comes in. And this is a big one. He argues that no matter how well you plan, you need to build in a margin of safety,
Okay.
a buffer for when things inevitably go wrong.
So it's like having an emergency fund?
That's a great example.
Okay.
But it goes beyond just like having some cash on hand.
Okay.
It's about making decisions with like a certain level of humility,
Okay.
knowing that our predictions are often wrong,
Yeah.
being flexible enough to adapt when those inevitable curveballs come our way.
So instead of trying to like predict the future perfectly, which is impossible,
Right.
we should focus on building a strategy that can handle like whatever life throws at us.
Exactly. It's like accepting that risk is part of the game, but it's about managing it in a smart way
Right.
so that one single setback doesn't completely wipe you out.
Yeah.
Housel uses this analogy of blackjack.
Yeah.
It's like, even the best blackjack players, they know they can't win every single hand.
Right.
So they bet conservatively.
Okay.
To stay in the game longer, even when the odds seem in their favor.
That's a good analogy. Don't bet the farm on any one hand because you never know when that wrong card's going to pop up.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about playing the long game, not just trying to win big once.
Right.
And speaking of the long game, Housel also emphasizes the importance of being reasonable with your money, not just rational.
Okay. I'm intrigued. What's the difference?
So being rational is all about the logic, the spreadsheets.
Right.
Being reasonable means like actually factoring in your emotions because you're not a robot. It means acknowledging that sometimes you're going to make decisions based on fear or excitement or, maybe even just a gut feeling.
So it's about finding that balance
Exactly.
between the logic and the emotion.
Exactly.
Because let's face it, we've all had those moments where like you make an impulse purchase or get like caught up in the hype of like a hot stock tip.
All the time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It happens to the best of us.
Right.
And Housel reminds us, that's okay.
Okay.
We're human. We're not financial robots.
Right.
The key is just being aware of those emotional triggers and, making choices that ultimately align with your values, your long-term goals.
Right.
Even if they don't always make perfect financial sense, like on a spreadsheet.
That makes me feel a lot better, to be honest. It's like, just give yourself a little grace.
Totally.
Speaking of influences, we're constantly bombarded with these messages about money, right?
Right.
What to buy, how to invest, what success looks like. It's hard to know what to trust these days.
Oh, it's so true. And Housel, he really dives into this whole idea of narratives.
Okay.
He argues that the stories that we tell ourselves about money,
Right.
about the economy, about success, they have a huge impact on our perceptions and our decisions.
It's like those get-rich-quick schemes you see all the time.
Totally.
Or those stories about people who made millions overnight. And it's tempting, right? Because it taps
Yeah.
into this desire for easy money, instant gratification.
Oh, absolutely. But those narratives, they're often super misleading and can lead to, not the best financial decisions.
Mm-hmm.
It's like following a treasure map that leads to a dead end.
Right. So how do we avoid falling for those tempting but potentially dangerous narratives?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
Housel encourages us to be critical thinkers,
Okay.
to question everything. And remember that the loudest voices in finance, they're often trying to sell us something.
Right. It's like those flashy ads with celebrities promising you'll get rich if you just buy this one product
Exactly.
or invest in this one stock.
And the best way to combat those narratives, honestly, is to just tune out the noise,
Yeah.
focus on your own goals, and remember that true wealth, it's built over time. It's not an overnight thing.
Like slow and steady wins the race, right?
100%.
Yeah.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. And speaking of things that take time, Housel makes this fascinating point about how our perception of risk can get totally warped by this thing called recency bias.
Okay.
It's we tend to freak out about things that happened recently,
Oh, tell me about it.
even if they're statistically unlikely to happen again.
Like at that time I sold all my stocks after a one-day market dip, I was convinced it was the next big crash.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
It's totally human. But that's why, again, understanding your own, financial fingerprint,
Right.
your risk tolerance, your long-term goals is so crucial. Don't let one bad experience or some fear totally derail your whole plan.
It's about making those decisions based on your own needs and your goals, not on what everyone else is doing or saying.
100%. And this might make investing sound kind of scary, but Housel, he ends the book on this really hopeful note.
Okay.
He says that even though we can't control everything.
Right.
In the crazy world of finance, there are things we can control.
Like our spending habits, how much we save.
Exactly. Like he talks about, like, building that solid financial foundation, no matter like what your starting point is.
Yeah.
Think saving consistently, investing wisely, and always having that like room for error we talked about.
Yeah, it's like building a house, right?
Yeah.
You need that strong foundation
100%.
to weather any storm.
And he also emphasizes like having a healthy relationship with money.
Okay.
One that's not about like chasing those highest returns or like keeping up with the Joneses, but it's about using money as a tool to build the life that you actually want.
Right. So it's not just about like the numbers
Right.
in your bank account. It's about how those numbers make you feel.
Yes. Like finding that sweet spot where you're financially secure,
Right.
but also like you feel good about your choices. You have that peace.
Yes. Oh, one thing that really stuck with me was this idea that like wealth is what you don't see.
Oh, I love that.
Right. It's like this hidden world behind all the like the flashy stuff.
Right. It's not about the, fancy Kuntners or designer clothes. It's about that like financial security
Yeah.
that lets you live life on your own terms.
Yes. Having options.
Yes.
Freedom.
Freedom. Exactly.
The ability to like, I don't know, walk away from a job you hate.
Totally.
Or like take that dream vacation. That to me, that's true wealth.
Exactly. And like so often the people who like achieve that level of wealth, they're the ones who are content, like living below their means.
Yeah.
Saving diligently, not getting caught up in the comparison game.
Yeah. That's so easy to do though.
The worst.
Right. You're constantly comparing yourself to others.
It's so toxic.
Feeling like you're not good enough.
Totally. But Housel reminds us that like comparison is the thief of joy.
Ooh, I like that.
Right. True contentment, it comes from like focusing on your own journey, appreciating what you have.
Right.
And he also talks about this like really important idea of defining the game you're playing.
Okay, what does that mean?
So it means like being really mindful of who you're comparing yourself to.
Oh, okay.
Like are you trying to keep up with like millionaires on Instagram?
Uh,
Or are you focused on like achieving your own version of financial success?
Oh, that's good. Yeah, because it's so easy to look at someone and you're like, oh, they made it. And you feel like you're like behind.
Right, but everyone's journey is different.
Yeah.
Like comparing your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20 is just a recipe for like feeling bad about yourself.
Right. Stay in your lane. Focus on your own race.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of like focusing on what matters, Housel makes this really interesting point about the role of humility in financial success.
Humility.
Yeah, it's kind of unexpected, right?
Yeah.
But he argues that the people who build lasting wealth, not just like, quick riches, but like lasting wealth,
Right.
they often share this trait of humility. They're willing to like suppress their ego, avoid that whole like keeping up with the Joneses thing,
Right.
and just focus on like quietly and steadily growing their wealth.
No, it's not about like being flashy or showing off. It's
Right.
about having that freedom, that security to, live life on your own terms.
Exactly. And sometimes, that means making choices that might seem like unconventional to other people.
Mhm.
He talks about how like he and his wife, they decided to pay off their mortgage early,
Right.
even though it might not have been like the most financially optimal decision, like on paper.
But it gave them peace of mind.
Exactly.
That feeling of like security and freedom.
Exactly. It was a decision rooted in like their values, their priorities,
Mhm.
not just like, what the spreadsheets told them to do.
Right. And that's so important. Remembering that money is a tool
Yes.
and we get to choose how we use it.
100%.
Mhm.
Housel, he really wants us to start viewing our finances not just through this like narrow lens of like numbers on a spreadsheet,
Right.
but through the lens of our values, our dreams, like our definition of a life well lived.
It's about asking yourself, what does financial freedom actually mean to me?
Yes. And then like having the courage to make choices that align with that vision.
Yeah.
Even if they don't fit like, the traditional mold. That's what this book is all about.
That's such a powerful message. As we kind of wrap up our deep dive here,
Yeah.
what is like one big takeaway that you hope our listeners walk away with today?
For me, it's this. You are not a spreadsheet. You are a human being with emotions and experiences and a totally unique story. Embrace that. Learn from it. And use it to like, craft a financial future that feels authentically you.
I love that. It's about understanding that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to money. What matters most is finding what works for you and building a life that you love.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And that is a wrap on our deep dive into the psychology of money. So much good stuff in there.
So many good stories.
Yeah, thanks for diving in with me.
This was fun.
Yeah, and to our listeners, as always, thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.